So you want to know more about Rolex and sustainability, huh? We came to the right place for a deep dive. We just went through their 2023 sustainability report, their very first public one. And let me tell you, it's pretty fascinating. Like, how does a luxury brand tackle these big issues?
It is interesting. They decided to base the whole report around what they call their priority sustainability issues, which they actually figured out by doing a materiality analysis.
A materiality analysis. It
Yeah.
sounds kind of complicated.
Yeah, well, it's basically just a way to figure out which sustainability issues are actually the most important, like the ones that matter most.
So they're not just like picking random things to focus on. They actually put in the work to figure out where they can like make the biggest difference.
Exactly. They looked at what their stakeholders actually care about and the impact their business has on the economy, the environment, and society. They even linked each of these issues to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals.
Wow, the UN goals. Those are pretty big, global goals.
Yeah.
It's pretty ambitious. So how does a company like Rolex, known for luxury and those, well, expensive watches, actually put these ideas into action?
Well, one thing that really sets them apart is their business model. They're what's called vertically integrated.
Vertically integrated. So like, what does that actually mean?
It means they control every step of making their watches, from sourcing the materials to putting the final product together.
So they're not just designing the watches, but like melting the gold and everything, crafting the movements, the cases, everything.
Exactly. It gives them a lot of control over their entire supply chain. They know where their materials come from, who's handling them, how it's all processed.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that connects to sustainability.
Huh.
But how does that work in practice?
Well, if you have control over your whole supply chain, you can put sustainable practices in place at each stage. You can make sure you're sourcing materials ethically, minimizing waste, reducing emissions, and still maintain that, legendary Rolex quality.
That's a really good point. It's like they've built sustainability into the core of how they do business. And speaking of business, their report highlights this. Like massive investment, 6.4 billion Swiss francs. They put in between 2007 and 2027. That's a real commitment.
It really is. Shows they're putting their money where their mouth is, investing in new tech, equipment, facilities, all focused on becoming more sustainable.
So they're not just trying to do less harm, they're actually trying to become more sustainable, like going beyond just reducing their impact.
Yeah, and they're not shy about their goals either. For example, they've publicly committed to lowering their carbon emissions, even had their reduction targets checked by the Science-Based Targets Initiative. Ever heard of them?
Vaguely. It's
Yeah.
like a way to make sure companies are setting, legit climate goals, right? Like science-backed goals.
Exactly. It prevents companies from making empty promises and pushes them to set targets that actually align with preventing the worst effects of climate change.
So by getting the SBTI to check their targets, Rolex is basically saying, hey, we're serious about this, and we're ready to be held accountable.
Precisely. It adds a level of credibility to what they're saying. They're not just making up targets, they're using science and best practices.
Okay, so they're putting a lot of thought and resources into this. But like, with a company as global as Rolex, how do they even start managing sustainability across all their operations?
Yeah.
19 subsidiaries, tons of retailers, service centers all over the world.
It's a huge undertaking, that's for sure. To manage it all, they've organized their sustainability efforts around 6 main pillars: governance, supply chain, sustainable products, environment, responsible employer, and committed company.
6 pillars. Wow. Sounds like they're covering all the bases. It's like they're building sustainability into every part of the business. But let's break it down a bit. Can you give me some real world examples of what they're actually doing?
One thing that really caught my eye was their focus on creating a more eco-responsible watch box.
An eco-friendly watch box. Really? That's interesting. Tell me more.
It might seem like a small thing, but it's actually a big deal. The new design uses way less plastic, like 92% less, by using wood, cardboard, and this material called molded cellulose.
So they're cutting down on plastic, which is good, but does it really make that much of a difference?
This one change alone is expected to reduce their plastic waste by, get this, 500 tons per year. Plus, they estimate it'll cut greenhouse gas emissions from the watch box's life cycle by 50%.
Wow, that's impressive. Guess they're proving that even small changes can have a big impact when you're a company the size of Rolex. But how do they make sure everyone in their global network is on board with these goals?
That's where the responsible employer pillar comes in. They're focused on creating a good and supportive work environment for their, over 15,000 employees worldwide.
So it's more than just offering, good pay and benefits. They're trying to build a culture of sustainability within the company itself.
Exactly. They're offering things like flexible work arrangements, promoting a good work-life balance, and making sure everyone has equal opportunities. They're also putting a lot of resources into training and development, especially when it comes to, you guessed it, sustainability.
So they're not just telling their employees to be more sustainable, they're actually giving them the tools and knowledge to make it happen.
That's right. They even have their own training center, the Center de Formation Rolex, where employees can learn all sorts of things, from technical skills to sustainability principles.
It really sounds like they're trying to make sustainability a core part of the company's DNA. But, with a brand as iconic as Rolex, known for luxury and craftsmanship, how do they make that work with, well, the sometimes less glamorous aspects of sustainability?
That's a great question,
Yeah.
and they actually address it head on in the report. For Rolex, sustainability isn't about compromising their luxury, it's about enhancing it. It's about ensuring their products are not only beautiful and durable, but also made responsibly.
So it's about creating a sense of luxury that's not just about owning fancy things, but also about values, about responsibility, making choices that are good for the planet and for people.
You got it. It's about a more, I guess you could say, mindful approach to luxury, one that understands that everything's connected. And this is especially clear in their approach to gold sourcing. It's one of the most interesting parts of their sustainability journey, I think.
Okay, I'm definitely interested to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Gold sourcing seems like a really tricky issue, especially for a luxury watchmaker.
It is. But Rolex has come up with a really innovative and thorough approach. Instead of just focusing on responsible mining, they've developed a system that uses three different types of gold: industrial circular gold, mine gold, and residual gold.
Hold on. Industrial circular gold. Residual gold. Those are new to me. What are we talking about here?
Well, industrial circular gold is basically gold that's been recycled from their own production. They collect and refine gold scraps and shavings, giving them a second life in their watches.
So they're closing the loop, turning their own waste into a valuable resource. Pretty smart.
It is. And in 2023, a whopping 70% of the gold they used was this industrial circular gold. And they want to keep it at 70% by 2025.
That's amazing. But what about the other types? Mined gold and residual gold. Where do they fit in?
Mined gold is, well, just what it sounds like, gold that's been mined. But Rolex is super careful about where they get it.
So not just any mine will do.
Nope. They have a whole traceability system that tracks the gold's journey from the mine all the way to their own refining, making sure it's transparent and accountable every step of the way.
So they can actually trace the origins of the gold in their watches.
Wow.
But how do they make sure those mines are operating ethically and responsibly?
They work closely with their refining partners to avoid any mines with potential human rights or environmental risks, and they're actively involved in trying to improve conditions in the mining industry overall, promoting, best practices and supporting responsible miners.
Okay, that makes sense. What about residual gold? You mentioned that too. What's that all about?
Residual gold is gold recovered from other industries, like electronics manufacturing. Think about all the gold in smartphones, computers, and stuff. A lot of that can be recovered and reused, reducing the demand for newly mined gold.
So they're tapping into existing sources of gold to lessen their impact.
Exactly. And they're aiming to increase their use of residual gold to 15% by 2025. Combined with their industrial circular gold, they're really lowering their reliance on newly mined gold.
So it's like a multi-pronged approach to gold sourcing, combining responsible mining with innovative recycling and recovery. That's pretty different from the traditional image of a luxury watchmaker, isn't it?
It is, but it's a great example of how a company can be both luxurious and sustainable, proving that you can have both without, sacrificing anything.
And it's not just about gold, right? They're doing this with all the materials in their watches.
Absolutely. They're just as careful about their silver, platinum, diamonds, gemstones, even the steel and other metals. They want complete transparency and traceability for everything.
So they're really putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to responsible sourcing. But how do they ensure the watches themselves, the final products, are made in a sustainable way?
Well, that's where the sustainable products pillar comes in. They're focused on integrating sustainability principles into every part of product design and manufacturing, from the materials they choose to the actual processes they use.
So it's not just what goes into the watch, it's how it's made too.
Exactly. They're constantly trying to reduce their environmental impact throughout the entire process, from minimizing energy and water use to reducing waste.
Seems like they're not missing anything. But, with a brand like Rolex so focused on precision and craftsmanship, how does that work with the need for constant innovation and improvement that comes with sustainability?
For Rolex, innovation and sustainability go hand in hand. They see sustainability as an opportunity to push the limits of what's possible. They're investing in research and development all the time, exploring new materials, new processes, and new technologies to achieve their sustainability goals, all while maintaining their, exceptional quality.
So they're not just trying to meet current standards, they're trying to shape the future of sustainable luxury.
Exactly. And they're not doing it alone. They're partnering with research institutions, universities, and other companies to share knowledge and expertise, speeding up the whole process of innovation.
Like they're creating this ecosystem of sustainability, bringing together the best minds to tackle these challenges the luxury industry is facing. But, with a product as durable as a Rolex, how does the idea of a watch lasting a long time fit into their sustainability strategy?
That's a really interesting point. You're right. Rolex watches are known for being, well, built to last, for generations even. And Rolex actually sees this as a key part of their sustainability story.
So it's not just about making their products more sustainable in the short term, they're thinking about the long-term impact as well.
Absolutely. They see longevity as a form of sustainability in itself. By making products that last, they reduce the need for replacements, which ultimately lessens their impact on the environment.
Makes total sense.
hmm
But how do they make sure these watches can actually be maintained and repaired over such a long lifespan?
They're very committed to after-sales service. They offer a 5-year warranty on all their new watches and guarantee the availability of spare parts for 35 years. And even after that, they'll make specific parts if you need them.
Wow, 35 years. That's incredible. It's like they're trying to create a system where their watches can be repaired and enjoyed forever.
That's the idea. They see it as a big part of their sustainability commitment, making sure their products can be enjoyed for generations to come. And it's not just about the watches, it's about the packaging, the shipping, everything.
Okay, we've talked about their approach to sourcing gold, their efforts to make the products themselves more sustainable, and their commitment to after-sales service. But what about their impact on the environment more broadly? What are they doing to lower their carbon footprint, use less water, and address other environmental concerns?
That's a great question, and they cover it extensively in their report. They're taking a multifaceted approach, tackling these issues from different angles.
So it's not just about reducing emissions, it's about a whole range of environmental impacts.
Yeah, exactly. They're looking at everything from energy efficiency and waste management to water conservation and protecting biodiversity.
Sounds like a comprehensive approach. Can you give me some specific examples?
Sure. One of their big focuses is energy efficiency. They've set ambitious targets to use less energy and are implementing a bunch of measures to reach those goals. For example, they've invested in energy-efficient technologies and equipment, they're streamlining their production processes, and they're even putting energy-saving measures in place in their offices and stuff.
So they're not just focusing on the big things, they're paying attention to the small stuff too.
Absolutely. They understand that every little bit helps when it comes to reducing their impact.
What about water conservation? Are they doing anything to use less water?
Water conservation is super important to them, yeah. They've implemented a whole water management program with measures to use less water, treat wastewater, and even reuse water whenever they can.
Seems like they're really approaching this from all angles.
They are. And it's not just about reducing their negative impact. It's about doing something positive for the environment, too. For example, they're supporting projects that protect biodiversity and restore ecosystems.
So they're going beyond just reducing their own impact. They're actively trying to make the world a better place.
Exactly. And they're doing it in a way that fits with their values, precision, excellence, and long-term thinking.
Okay, we've talked a lot about their internal stuff, but what about their impact on the wider world? How do they work with suppliers, customers, and everyone else on sustainability?
Another great question. They know they can't do this alone. They have to work with their suppliers, their customers, and the whole community.
So it's about creating a ripple effect throughout their entire value chain.
You got it. They're working with their suppliers to promote sustainable practices, talking to their customers about these issues, and even partnering with NGOs and other organizations to support broader sustainability efforts.
Sounds like they're using their influence to create positive change outside of just their own company. But how do they measure if they're actually making a difference?
That's where their commitment to being transparent and accountable comes in. They're not just talking about it, they're tracking their progress, showing their results, and holding themselves to high standards.
So no vague claims, they're providing actual evidence.
Yep. They're keeping track of their environmental footprint, their social performance, their governance practices, and publishing detailed reports on their progress. They're even seeking external validation and certification to show that they're serious about credibility and transparency.
Really seems like they're committed to doing what they say they'll do. But how do they make sure sustainability is a part of the entire organization?
That's where their governance structure comes in. They've set up a framework that ensures sustainability is included in their decision-making at every level of the company.
So it's not just one sustainability department that's responsible. Sustainability is a part of every decision, from product development to supply chain to marketing.
That's right. They have a whole sustainability committee at the board level, and sustainability is part of the job description for managers and employees throughout the company.
Sounds like they're trying to create a culture where everyone feels responsible for contributing to their sustainability goals. But what about the future? What's their vision for sustainability down the road?
That's a great question. They see sustainability as an ongoing journey, one that requires constant learning, adapting, and innovating. They want to keep getting better, setting new goals, and pushing the limits of what's possible in the luxury industry.
So they're not content with just meeting the standards. They're always trying to be better, do more, and set a higher bar for the industry.
Exactly. They see sustainability as a core part of their brand identity, their legacy, and their future success.
It's really inspiring to see a company like Rolex taking such a comprehensive and ambitious approach to sustainability. They're showing that luxury and responsibility can absolutely go hand in hand, and it's a powerful example for other companies to follow.
I agree. They're demonstrating that sustainability isn't just the right thing to do, it's good for business too. It's a win-win.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into Rolex's sustainability report, but there's still a lot more to explore.
Yeah, we've only just scratched the surface. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into some of their specific initiatives, their partnerships, and their vision for what sustainable luxury can be.
So stay tuned, there's lots more to come. All right, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, can you remind me, what were some of the big wins that Rolex highlighted in the report?
Yeah.
The things they were really proud of in 2023?
Oh, yeah, for sure. One that stands out is that they finally, officially laid out their whole sustainability strategy, all their goals and objectives for the next few years.
Always good to have a plan,
Yeah.
right? Especially with something as big and complicated as sustainability. What else?
They also finished their third analysis of their carbon footprint. Remember we talked about the Science-Based Targets Initiative?
Huh?
Well, after that analysis, they set their emission reduction goals for 2030 and sent them off to the SBTI to be officially checked and validated.
So they're really putting themselves out there, huh? Committing to those targets based on science. Anything else that you found interesting?
Well, they launched some cool projects focused on eco-friendly packaging. Think back to that eco watch box we talked about.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That's just one example. Oh, and they also made a big jump in the number of apprenticeships they offer. Increased it by 23%, actually.
Wow, that's a lot. Seems like they're really invested in, training the next generation of watchmakers.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the planet for them, right? It's about people, too. Social responsibility and all that.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, they're also doing some awesome work with coral reef restoration through this thing called the Coral Gardeners Initiative.
Coral gardeners? What's that?
They've replanted over 100,000 corals in places like French Polynesia and Fiji.
That's pretty cool. Coral reefs are so important. Okay, let's circle back to those sustainability pillars. We touched on a few before, but let's go a bit deeper. Starting with governance. What does that even mean when we're talking about sustainability?
Governance is all about how a company is run, how they make decisions, how they make sure everything's ethical and responsible, When it comes to sustainability, governance is about having a system in place to make sure it's baked into everything the company does.
So it's not enough to just have good intentions. You got to have a system to make sure those intentions actually turn into, actions.
You got it. And Rolex doesn't mess around with this. They have a whole department, the Sustainability Impact Department, and a bunch of committees that all work together to guide their sustainability strategy.
It's not just a side project for them, huh? It's really how they do business.
Yeah, totally. And remember that new responsible purchasing policy they have? The one that goes further than just following the law?
Yeah, I remember that.
That's a big part of their governance, too. They want to make sure all their suppliers are operating ethically and sustainably. They're not just checking boxes, they're actually trying to make a difference.
They even have those committees that focus specifically on, like, precious metals and gemstones, right?
Yep. They have a whole system for tracing where their materials come from and making sure they're sourcing everything ethically. It's really quite something. They're digging deep to understand their supply chain.
Seems like transparency is a big theme for them. They're not being secretive. They're actually being open about their practices and telling the world what they're doing. This report is a perfect example of that.
Totally. Communicating their sustainability efforts, both inside the company and to the public, is really important to them. They want everyone to understand what they're doing, from their employees and customers to investors and just regular people.
Okay, let's move on to the next pillar. Supply chain. We already talked about their responsible sourcing, but what else are they doing to make their supply chain, like, more sustainable overall?
They're going beyond just auditing their suppliers, for one thing. They're actually working with them to help them improve, offering training and support to help them become more sustainable themselves.
So it's more like working together instead of just telling them what to do.
Exactly. They see their suppliers as like partners in this whole sustainability thing. They get that they have a shared responsibility to make things better.
That's cool. It's not about just, like, pointing fingers. It's about working together to find solutions. Anything else they're doing with their supply chain?
They have a whole system for managing risk, which helps them figure out and deal with any potential problems that might come up in their supply chain. And they're always looking for ways to improve their processes and make them more sustainable.
Sounds like they're really on top of things, thinking ahead and trying to prevent problems before they happen.
For them, it's all about continuous improvement, always getting better. They're not afraid to experiment, try new things, and even learn from their mistakes.
I like that attitude. Okay, let's move on to the next one, sustainable products. We talked about the eco watch box and responsible sourcing, but what else are they doing to make their actual products more sustainable?
They're really into these eco-design principles, which basically means they're thinking about the environmental impact of their products through the whole life cycle, from the materials to the manufacturing to what happens to them at the very end.
So it's about more than just using recycled stuff or less packaging. It's about the whole journey of the product from start to finish.
Exactly. They're trying to minimize their impact every step of the way.
Can you give me some examples of how they're doing that?
Well, they're always researching and developing new materials and processes that are better for the environment, for example. They've been working on using less hazardous stuff in their products, and they're looking into using more recycled and renewable materials.
So they're not just trying to make their current products more sustainable, they're trying to design new products that are sustainable from the ground up.
Yeah, they see innovation as a key part of sustainability. They think that by pushing the boundaries, they can make products that are not only beautiful and luxurious, but also good for the planet and the people making them.
It's great to see them being so proactive and forward-thinking. But how does that work with Rolex watches being so durable and lasting so long? How do they factor in that longevity into their sustainability approach?
That's a great point. Like we talked about earlier, they're all about product longevity. They see it as a core part of their commitment to sustainability. They design their watches to be repaired and maintained so they can be used for years and years, even generations. They even guarantee they'll have spare parts for 35 years.
35 years. Seriously. It's like they're trying to create a system where these watches can be repaired and enjoyed forever.
That's the goal. It's a great example of how sustainability and luxury can actually work together. It's not just about reducing impact. It's about making things that have lasting value and meaning.
Okay, we've talked about their sustainable products, but what about their own operations and facilities? What are they doing to minimize their impact on the planet in terms of their carbon footprint and things like that?
Their environment pillar covers all of that. They're really focused on cutting their carbon emissions, reducing waste, conserving water, and protecting biodiversity.
Sounds like a pretty big to-do list.
It is. They're taking a really broad view of their environmental impact, recognizing that everything's connected.
So what are they actually doing in each of those areas?
Well, when it comes to carbon emissions, they've set some pretty ambitious goals for reducing their footprint, and they're switching to renewable energy sources wherever possible. They're installing solar panels at their production sites and using biogas for heating.
So they're putting their money into clean energy.
Yep. And they're doing things like optimizing their energy use in their buildings and encouraging their employees to use more sustainable transportation options.
That's awesome. What about waste? Are they doing anything to reduce the amount of waste they create?
Absolutely. They have a really strict waste management policy. They try to minimize waste from the get-go. They separate and sort everything for recycling, and they make sure that any waste that they can't avoid is disposed of responsibly.
So they're trying to get to zero waste.
That's the goal, and they're making good progress.
Yeah.
And they're not stopping there. They're also working with their suppliers to reduce waste throughout the whole supply chain.
And what about water? What are they doing to conserve water?
They've got a comprehensive water management program in place with measures to use less water, treat wastewater, and reuse water whenever possible. They're even thinking about their water footprint in their supply chain and encouraging their suppliers to adopt good water management practices.
It sounds like they're really going above and beyond to minimize their environmental impact in every aspect of their operations. But what about their social impact? We talked a bit about the responsible employer pillar earlier, but can you tell me more about what they're doing to create a positive work environment for their employees?
Oh, definitely. Rolex is all about taking care of their people. They want to create a workplace where everyone feels valued and supported.
So it's more than just offering good pay and benefits.
Yeah, they have all sorts of programs and initiatives in place to support employee well-being, including health and safety, work-life balance, and diversity and inclusion.
Can you give me some examples?
Sure. They've got strong health and safety programs to prevent accidents and injuries. They offer flexible work arrangements and parental leave, and they have initiatives to promote gender equality and diversity in the workplace. They're also big on training and development, offering their employees lots of opportunities to learn and grow.
Sounds like they're really building a culture of excellence, not just in terms of their products, but also in terms of how they treat their employees.
Yeah, they believe that their employees are their biggest asset, and they want to create a workplace where everyone can thrive.
Okay, so we've talked about governance, supply chain, sustainable products, environment, and being a responsible employer. That leaves us with the last pillar, committed company. What does that one cover?
That pillar's all about how Rolex uses its influence and resources to make a positive impact on the world. It includes all their philanthropic work, their partnerships, and their efforts to promote sustainability outside of their own company.
So it's about being a good corporate citizen.
Exactly. They believe that they have a responsibility to give back and make the world a better place.
Can you give me some examples of their philanthropic work?
They support a wide range of causes, from environmental conservation to social justice, education, and even cultural preservation. They have their own foundation, the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, which gives money to all sorts of projects around the world.
So they're not just writing checks, they're actually getting involved in these causes.
They are. They have a dedicated team to manage their philanthropic activities and work closely with their partners to make sure their funding is actually making a difference.
And what about partnerships? Are they working with other organizations to reach their sustainability goals?
Oh, yeah. They have a bunch partnerships with leading organizations in areas like environmental conservation, exploration, and social responsibility. For example, they've been partnering with the National Geographic Society for ages, supporting expeditions and research projects all over the world. And they were also a founding partner of the Sylvia Earle Alliance's Mission Blue initiative, which is all about protecting the oceans.
So they're realizing that they can't do everything alone and that it's important to collaborate and work with others to make a real difference.
Exactly. They think they can accomplish a lot more by working together, and they're using their brand recognition and resources to help boost these partnerships.
It's great to see them being so collaborative. But how do they make sure these partnerships and philanthropic efforts are actually in line with their sustainability goals?
Well, they have a really clear sustainability strategy, and they make sure that all their philanthropic work and partnerships fit into that strategy. They also have a system for evaluating the impact of their initiatives, making sure their funding is actually creating positive change.
So they're not just throwing money at problems, they're actually making sure their efforts are making a real impact.
That's right. For them, philanthropy is a key part of their sustainability journey, not just something they do on the side.
Okay, so we've talked about their 6 sustainability pillars, their accomplishments, their approach to governance, their supply chain management, their focus on making sustainable products, their environmental footprint, their role as a responsible employer, and their commitment to being a committed company. It's obvious that they're taking a holistic and integrated approach to sustainability, really trying to consider everything.
You got it. They see sustainability as a journey, not a destination. It's about constantly improving and getting better.
They're not afraid to experiment, try new approaches, and learn from their mistakes along the way. It's inspiring.
I agree. They're setting a high bar for other luxury brands, proving that it's possible to be both luxurious and sustainable.
And they're not just talking about it, they're actually taking action and making a difference.
For sure. They're showing that sustainability isn't just the right thing to do, it's good for business too. It's a win-win situation.
It's really inspiring to see a company like Rolex taking on such a leadership role in this area. They're demonstrating that sustainability is not a trade-off, but a real opportunity.
I agree. They're proving that sustainability is a chance to innovate, create value, and even build a stronger brand.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive into Rolex's sustainability report, but we still have more to discuss. In the final part, we'll wrap things up by looking at some of the key takeaways from this report and what it all means for the future of sustainable luxury.
I can't wait. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I'm excited to share some final thoughts.
So we spent quite a bit of time with this report. It's clear that Rolex is serious about this whole sustainability thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're not just talking a good game, they're putting in the work and making changes throughout their entire business.
You know, what really struck me was the level of detail they go into. It's not just about using recycled materials or cutting emissions. It's about tracing every single part, considering the whole life cycle of a product, and even going above and beyond what's legally required.
Yeah, it's like they're looking at sustainability from every possible angle. Nothing's overlooked.
Exactly. And it's not just about the environmental stuff either. They're putting just as much emphasis on being socially responsible, like how they treat their employees and all their philanthropy work.
It seems like it all comes back to their focus on excellence. They're not just trying to be sustainable, they're trying to be the best at it, like setting a whole new standard for the luxury industry.
I think you're right. It's like they're applying the same level of detail and precision to their sustainability efforts as they do to making their watches.
That's it. And they're not settling for doing the bare minimum either. They're always looking for ways to push things further and do even better.
Like that eco watch box. I mean, who would have thought you could make a watch box that's both luxurious and eco-friendly?
Right. It just shows how committed they are to finding innovative solutions. Sustainability doesn't have to mean sacrificing quality or style.
And it's not just the product, it's the whole experience. The materials, the manufacturing, the after-sales service. It's like they're creating a closed loop where everything is considered.
That's what stood out to me too, the systems thinking. They're not just focusing on individual actions, they're thinking about how to create a circular economy where resources are used and reused, there's minimal waste, and products are built to last.
And they're not hiding anything either. This report is super detailed and transparent. They're laying it all out for everyone to see.
Transparency is so important. It builds trust.
Yeah.
And it holds them accountable. They're not just making promises, they're showing us how they're keeping those promises.
It's like they're saying, hey, we're not perfect, but we're working on it. And we want you to see what we're doing.
That's a really powerful message, I think. And it's something that people really care about these days. Consumers want to know where their products come from, how they're made, and what impact they have on the world.
And Rolex is definitely stepping up to meet those expectations. They're showing that it's possible to be a luxury brand that's also ethical and sustainable.
Totally. They're proving that sustainability isn't just a marketing ploy, it's a core part of their business strategy. And it's something that can actually make a brand more valuable and strengthen its reputation.
It's not just about customers either. It's about attracting and keeping good employees too. People want to work for companies that share their values.
Oh, for sure. And Rolex is creating a work environment where people can feel good about what they do, knowing that they're contributing to something positive.
All their efforts around employee well-being, diversity, and training are really impressive. They're investing in their people just as much as they're investing in sustainability initiatives.
That's the sign of a smart company. Happy employees are productive employees, and they're more likely to stick around.
It's a win-win all around. So what do you see happening next? What's the future of sustainable luxury?
I think Rolex is paving the way. They're showing that sustainability is no longer just a nice-to-have for luxury brands. It's a must-have.
Customers are getting smarter. They want products that are beautiful and high quality, but they also want them to be ethically made and environmentally responsible.
And this is just the beginning. I think we're going to see more and more luxury brands following Rolex's lead, making sustainability a central part of their business and being transparent about how they're doing it.
It's not just about brands, though. It's about consumers, too. We all have a responsibility to demand sustainable practices and support brands that are trying to do the right thing.
Couldn't agree more. Our choices matter. Every time we buy something, we're voting for the kind of world we want.
So it's a team effort. It's about brands, consumers, and everyone in between working together to create a more sustainable future.
And Rolex is showing that it can be done. It might not be easy, but it's worth it.
Well, that's all the time we have for our deep dive into Rolex's 2023 Sustainability Report. What a fascinating look into how a luxury brand is taking on these important issues.
It's been a really insightful journey. Rolex's dedication to sustainability is truly impressive. They're really putting their words into action.
Yeah, the level of detail they go into, from tracing their gold to creating that eco watch box and all the training they provide for their employees, it's really changed my perspective on Rolex.
This report definitely shows that they're making moves, but it also makes you wonder, what can we as consumers do to push for more sustainability in the luxury market? Something to think about.
For sure. We'll make sure to link to the full report in the show notes so everyone can check it out. And let us know what you think. This is definitely a conversation worth continuing.